Hello and welcome to another episode of Alf's Zoo. Today we're going to have Alf's Easter show with Simon King and Anthony Orr. As you know, they tend to celebrate the seasons with us. But unfortunately, Simon couldn't make it this time. Do you know what's wrong, Anthony?
Yes, Simon's having probably service support issues in the parking lot right now.
In the
So
park.
hopefully he gets those things resolved soon so that he can get the service or the that he wants delivered to him as efficient and as effective as possible, so he can get back to his regular role.
Oh. Unfortunately, Simon can't join us, but we'll schedule another meeting with him in the near future. Anthony, you've been out and about a lot lately. You've been traveling a lot, and you go on other travels. You're actually taking Simon with you to Australia and New Zealand, and more on that later. But you've been in Asia for a while there. Where you been?
Well, I went to Hong Kong. I went to Taipei in Taiwan. I went to Jakarta in Indonesia, and I went to Bangkok in Thailand. And I got to see something very interesting in Taipei. There was a student protest going on while I was there, right outside the hotel. I don't know if you saw it on CNN or not, but it was quite interesting the way CNN portrayed it and what was really going on outside the hotel. The students were really peaceful but making a lot of noise and shouting about their concerns, not wanting to be the next Hong Kong we don't need to go into what that really means, but people probably can look that up. But then I saw on the news that when the police was called in, there was some more disturbances. That's because the students had started to try to break into one of the government buildings. But besides that, the police, they were peaceful and quiet, but just standing there trying to make sure there was no damage to property and so forth. And the students were sitting on the sidewalks and the streets with their megaphones talking and walking up and down the street. And I was out there with them, walking around, watching them. I took a few pictures, which I can probably share with you later, Alf, so that you can see my perspective of what was going on there. But quite interesting at the end of the day. So that's one of the highlights of the trip, I guess, watching actual protests that was being broadcast on CNN while I was there in the hotel right across the street from the protest with all the students out and about and so forth. So
It's not enough that we're going to cause controversy calling this the Al Zoo Easter show. You started by attacking the second largest economy in the world. Thank you for coming to the zoo. Now I have the Chinese government breathing down my neck.
and like I said, it was interesting. So.
Yeah. No.
I didn't think it was a bad protest like what you sometimes hear on the news with a lot of people getting hurt or shot at or and things like that. But it was peaceful, and the government said, okay, go ahead and protest. Let your voice be heard, but at the same time, don't damage any property. And that's when the ruckus started. So, and they calmed that down quickly. But the other thing, they were out there all night long, 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, right outside my window, with the megaphones and stuff. So I'm like, wow, when are they gonna stop? So I can go to sleep.
That's interesting. Where else did you go?
I started my trip in Hong Kong, and I visited a few customers there, and I helped them with some their service management initiatives. And one of the things that we were sort of chatting about a little bit earlier that I was telling you, I said a lot of times when people think about organizational maturity, they don't realize that a lot of organizations are at different levels of maturity all around the world. There's really no particular area in the world that is sort of more mature than another area. It just depends on the company and their approaches and so forth. So there was one customer I'd visit to give you a little insight into them. They had most of the tenure of most of their employees was 10 years or more, but they didn't have a service desk. So a lot of the employees, when they had issues with IT and things like that, they find a person that they knew who had been around the organization for who knows, 10 years or more that could answer their questions, and that's what they would do. So now they decided to put in a service desk. They sort of come to us and say, okay, we're looking at using some technology, and I told them, I said, well, BMC is really more than just a technology vendor at the end of the day. We're really a solution provider, and I explained what that meant to and they say, oh, well, that's really what we need. Because we have more issues than just putting in technology. We have to address the culture, the people, the process, and everything else. So I talked to them about that and got them moving in the right directions. And of course, local resources there are going to help them further and so forth. Then I visited some other companies that were a lot more mature, and from a best practice perspective, they're using even more than ITIL. They're using ITIL and a number of other best practices and trying to figure out the synergies between them as it relates to creating an overall architecture for their organization so they can deliver services more efficient, be higher performing, and things like that. So I talked to them a lot about that on synergies between ITIL and other best practices because I know more than just ITIL. I know a lot of other best practices, so I can easily talk to those subjects too.
No, but that's important. I mean, for example, in Hong Kong, we recently had a big success with one of the public systems who wanted to use MyIT. Who wanted to use, which is a brand new type of self-service that is more like Facebook than it is a regular app. You do things very differently than a regular business app, and it's hard. It's easy for us to sit here and say, "Oh, that's cool. You should know how to do it." Everybody use it. It's hard for some of these guys to accept it, digest it, and then pass on the knowledge and know what to do with it. So to have that trusted advisor, especially as technology becomes more and more modernized, is going to be even more and more important.
Yeah, one of the things that a lot of companies should realize about our My IT solutions, when you talk about that, it really helps improve the performance of an organization's value chain. And what's a value chain at the end of the day? That's the services that get delivered, how they're supported, and everything else. So, for example, if you can improve that end user experience and the way they interact with IT so that they become higher performing, you're actually improving the value chain, you can make things leaner and overall help the company perform more, which of course helps with what I talk about sometimes, which is social value. For example, if you're a financial institution, maybe you can process more loans, or maybe if you're a healthcare organization, maybe you can look at the more patients at the end of the day by empowering those end users that are using IT underneath the services that the organization offers. So,
what would you say, talking to customers and people in general in that Asia area, are the three biggest issues to get to those type of results you're talking about? Being a better business, being able to process more information, being able to transact more tickets.
Well, as it relates to what you just said, Alf, one of the top issues that I think is really starting to come to light a lot more related to value realization and value networks is the ability to have a service catalog. Recently, I spoke at the Pink Elephant Conference about service catalogs, and I did a Bright Talk webinar about service catalogs. And what I was trying to do in those sessions is really explain to people, what is a service catalog, how they work, how you define, how do you do planning, and how do you create, and how do you actually put service catalogs into operations based on the business outcomes that you're trying to get to. A lot of times when I hear organizations talk about service catalogs, they're usually talking about self-service catalogs or requestable catalogs, but they're not talking about the full-blown catalog. And when I ask them, why are they thinking about a service catalog, they may give me multiple reasons, and the reasons may span the ITIL service lifecycle. In other words, they may go from, I need to be more strategic, or I need to help design services better, or I need to help with change management because I want to be more service orientated with the way I manage changes and releases, or I want to create a different experience for my end user, so I want to improve service operation with a requestable type catalog. Each one of those areas within ITIL, from strategy design to transition and operations, that's a different view of the catalog that you really need to utilize in order to help with decision support around those initiatives that they have. So they really need to understand how to do that. A lot of organizations always usually start from a service operation perspective, because that's where we realize most of the value from the things we do when we actually deliver something. So the requestable catalog is usually the number one thing that's usually on their mind, or what some people may call the self-service catalog. And then now I hear in the industry that people are talking about sort of cloud requestable catalogs, which is really almost the same concepts at the end of the day, so that you can deliver, or get people to understand the services you deliver, so that you can industrialize those things the right way, and help consumerize them too at the end of the day, so people can actually use them. Now, number two, I would say there's more initiatives around change management and managing change within an organization, and the way organizations are starting to think a lot more about change. It's not just within the concept of IT change, but actually starting to connect change management with their projects. So they're starting to, as they start to do this, they're starting to look at things like, how does the project management office and a service management office work together? And or at the what is a service management office? Should I have one of those as relates to managing changes across the organization? Because if you're thinking about managing changes, you really want to be service orientated. You don't want to be say, well, I'm going to manage the network change and the database change and the application change. I'm going to do it all separately, and I'm going to bring down the system 10 times a day, and I really don't have control. But if you become more service orientated, and you create an organization that's that way, you create processes that way, and use technology that way, you can more than likely improve your overall value to the organization, improve your overall value chains, and things like that for what you're doing. So that's the second area, more around change, or really the service transition area: change, release and deployment, asset and config. And
you're saying that is stretching outside of just IT. It could be onboarding, for example, which is technically just one long chain of changes.
Yeah, and it's really, you're trying to enable a service. You're not just enabling the IT components, because when you think about onboarding, if you take all the pieces apart that it takes to do onboarding, just like you have to order somebody's PC, you got to get their phone, you have to get their telephone, and you have to get their desk assigned, and all these different things. Those are multiple, sometimes business units with an organization putting those things together. And if you look back, and may still be true in some organizations, and I say look back 10 years, it's a piece of paper that got passed around. So by the time you get everything that you needed provisioned so that you could do your job, it may have been 2 weeks later. And really, when you get hired, the person that hired you really wants you to be productive on day one. But sometimes it takes a while because you don't have all the tools and everything that you need. So if you manage changes more effectively and use IT to support those things, and you embrace cloud technologies and mobile and everything else, the right way as it relates to your overall practice of service management, because underneath the practice of service management is the ability to enable services like onboarding, so that you can do those way more effectively, increase productivity of the organization, increase that outcome, increase the total cost of, manage the total cost of ownership, reduce the total cost of ownership, get better return on investment, and things like that for one of your key assets, which is your people at the end of the day.
So how big of a percentage of all outages come from bad change management?
I don't know. We have to go back and probably check with the people that keep those analytics, Gartner, IDC, and everything else. But I think even with the analytics they have, as I go from customer to customer, it's just different, and they know it's a key concern.
It's bigger than you would. It's bigger than you would think.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yep.
Half the time.
Yep. Much bigger, and until they start measuring it. Sometimes they don't know. They just feel it, based on what they hear in the organization and so forth. Mm-hmm. So you really want to change that with the right metrics or the KPIs, and map those up correctly as it relates to the outcomes that customers want to achieve. And the third thing, they give you a third thing. Let's see, what would be the third thing? So service catalog, service transition.
How big is something like CMDB over there?
CMDB is big all over, but I think really what's starting to happen is people are maturing the CMDB. In other words, they're trying to create more CMSs, configuration management systems. So they got the CMDB and they used it for mainly asset management. Now the CMS really helps them get more value from the CMDB by relating the CMDB with other data stores and tools, and then associating, for example, different service catalog views within the CMDB so that people can be more service orientated in the things that they do and so forth. So the CMDB is probably way more important. There's even improvement in the tool sets, just like if you think about what we've done with ADDM, with discovery and so forth, so we can discover, IT services that are commercial versus the out-of-the-box ones, so that people can get faster value out of what they're doing and so forth. Those type of things become very important for what organizations are trying to accomplish today.
Interesting. Interesting. Thank you, Anthony, for coming into the zoo. I appreciate it. Every time we go travel, I always have a little envious ping because you always go to the coolest places.
Yeah, and other places, Alpha. When I went to Taiwan, I met some great customers there. I met some great customers in Jakarta, mainly executive CIO types, and in Thailand, that was my first time going to Bangkok, and that was real interesting. The business climate there, and very good people, smart people all over. That really, at the end of the day, what I really like about the people, and what I always hear from them, they're always trying to do better things for their organization so they can deliver better services to their customers. And if you really think about that, at the end of the day, customers can be you or me or our relatives or people that you know. And when they get better services, and then when you really think about what these organizations are doing, just like I gave you an example saying that a financial institution that can process more loans for small businesses, that helps the economy, that helps everybody out at the end of the day. A hospital that can take care of more patients and be more efficient in taking care of patients so they make less mistakes, which cause errors and so forth. Those are the things that you hear really coming from these people now, versus I need to solve an IT problem. It's more, I need to solve a business issue. How can you help me? And that's what I talk to them about. I become sort of executive advisor to all these customers all around the world. So, and I really enjoy that at the end of the day.
That's cool.
Because I know I help them.
But it seems to be that the world is quite flat, and it reminds us that not only is it Easter, it's the anniversary of the Boston Marathon, and for all of you who dare to go out there, we're all with you. For the rest of you, take care. Bye-bye.
Yep, and in the spirit of Easter, happy Easter, everybody.